Good afternoon. My name is Adam Olsen. This is the Public Circle Live. I am the MLA for Saanich North and the Islands. And the Public Circle Live is a weekly broadcast where I talk about the week in BC politics as well. The Public Circle is the public outreach arm, the public engagement arm of the work that we do, Aldous and I, this is Aldous Sperl, the week that we do in our constituency office here in Saanich North and the Islands. Our constituency office is located in beautiful Sidney by the Sea, in the Landmark Building at the foot of Beacon. It's a beautiful place. If you haven't been here before, check it out. Hello, Luke. Hello, Laura. There's people joining us already. It's fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. It is April the 5th, 2018. This is episode 8. You said, this is Aldous Sperl. He's the guy that runs my life. You said, you do this 6 weeks in a row, I'll get you some lights. You delivered because I delivered.
It's true.
Isn't this beautiful? Look at this.
Well, for those of you who can't see, there's some lights on our face and around us, and we have this wonderful backdrop now. Anybody
who watched the first 6 episodes of this show, and as it's evolving over time, would know that the lighting was awful. The lighting now is very nice, and we've got this beautiful backdrop behind.
It's incredible.
We have a cool little studio in our office.
Yeah, well, in your office.
My office. It was my office. It's now a studio. Okay. So anyway, today, Aldous is going to join me. Today, we are going to continue along the lines of the things that we've been talking about for quite some time now, which is salmon. It's a big, big, important issue in British Columbia. It's something that we've been working on in the legislature. I've been working on it in the legislature. Aldous is going to tell us his salmon story as well. We have Kayla Phillips joining us. Kayla is the second of 2 interns that have come through our office. Kayla, Alex McGowan was here a few weeks ago. Kayla is joining me. This is the first time that I've had 2 guests on a show, so it's going to, we don't have a commercial break, so it's going to be obvious. Aldous is going to get kicked out. Kayla is going to join me, and we'll continue for the second part of the show. So if you are watching this show live, or even if you're watching the rebroadcast, I invite you to show us some love. Hit the like button a few times. Give us, show some heart. Maybe even give us a wow face like this. Or you could even, there's some like buttons. That's fantastic. Or you could even, because this is BC politics, frankly, you might even need to use the sad button or the frustration button. Because after all, it's BC politics. You can reach our office. You can reach our office by email if you want to reach out to us, schedule a meeting if you've got an issue that you'd like to talk about or an idea that you'd like to share with us. You can get a hold of us at 250-655-5600. You can also email us at adam.olsen.mla. It's right here. At ledge.bc.ca. That's right. Those are the ways that you can get a hold of us. You can find us online at adamolsen.ca. And so why not tag a friend in the comment section below. Leave a comment. Ask a question. We'll do our best to get to them later in the show. If we can't, I'll circle back around after the Royals game tonight because I'm taking my kids to the Royals game this evening.
Sounds fun.
Game 1, Series 2, Everett Silvertips. Go Royals. Anyway,
Go Royals.
I'll circle back around later on and I'll answer as many of the questions as I possibly can. Thank you very much for joining us today. So now we've got that out of the way, I invited people, hashtag my salmon story, hashtag my salmon story if you're on Twitter. I am on Twitter. That's how you can get a hold of us. Right there. So,
why did you do that?
Adam P. Olsen. I shared my salmon story. I grew up fishing in the Saanich Inlet with my dad, my grandpa. Salmon is my life, and it's the work that I'm doing in the legislature right now. You said you have a salmon story.
Well, hold on, but before we get there, why are we asking people to share their salmon stories?
Well, look, because we need to fix salmon policy in this province. That's why. It's a mess as far as I'm concerned, as far as a lot of people are concerned. We said we'd like to fix the salmon policy in this province, and we started to talk about it, and the outpouring of agreement that salmon policy in British Columbia needs to change. It needs to go from being responsible of 6 ministries to one person's responsibility.
Because no one's really looking after salmon.
Well, there's a lot of people looking after it, which means, of course, if there's a lot of people doing something, then no one is really the lead person. you can't say 6 people are leading this file. That's weird. So we've proposed a salmon commissioner, salmon secretariat, because what we want to have one clear person leading this file.
But we also want to make sure that if you've got a salmon story, that you share it with us, and that puts pressure on the government and shows how many people care about salmon in our province.
So you can go to adamolsen.ca. You can see my cute picture with me holding some salmon, and I'll leave it. Maybe it's not a cute picture, but you can judge that. And you can click on that link, and in the comments section below of that blog post, you can leave your salmon story. And I'm encouraging everybody to leave their salmon story. Then you can go onto your social media accounts and hashtag some kind of cool thing saying my salmon story, and encourage people to share their salmon story also on my blog post. We want to get as many salmon stories as possible. We've all got one. We live here on the coast. Salmon are the lifeblood of this coastline. And so please go to my website, adamolsen.ca. It couldn't be more obvious. You just click on the link and share your salmon story.
Speaking of the salmon story.
Salmon story.
Right. So here I am. I'm kayaking the BC coast.
Here?
Well, on the ocean.
On the ocean. That's
in BC.
Appropriate.
Kayaking down from Prince Rupert to Port Hardy.
Okay.
And we're about a week into the trip, and all I've had is frozen.
Who are you with?
I was with my partner at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're kayaking down.
He's a provider.
Well, I was trying to be, but all we'd have was freeze-dried food for the last 5 days. You know, it was a month-long trip, so we had to pack conservatively. Nice. But we haven't had fresh food in a while, and we're talking 20, 30-kilometer days of paddling, big, long days. And I come to a river, small one, and there's fish jumping. And so I pull out my rod, threw a few casts in, not so successful, throw a few more in, catch a salmon, start fighting that salmon. It comes in, the boat's rocking. Granted, it's not that big of a salmon, but let me tell you, when you're in a kayak.
How big?
Well, we're talking maybe 5 to 7 pounds.
Shaker,
but like
not
tippy
in a kayak.
Tippy kayak. Okay. So like, you know,
right.
it was touch and go for
its
a few
eyes
minutes.
were like this big.
Anyway, pull the thing in. It's flopping all around, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do without falling in the ocean? Hit it, put it underneath my little strap, and then I kayak another 5-10 kilometers, set up a nice fire, got the fish, put it on the coals. Beautiful, fresh food. Let me tell you, nothing like it.
So I'll say something. That is the story that so many people have.
Yeah. About
salmon. Their experience catching their first salmon, or catching the salmon when they need it, or eating the salmon, or eating a salmon that someone has shared with them. The only thing that I'd say about that is the next time you tell the story, it was a 15-pound coho.
Massive. It was the size of my boat.
Took like 16 hours for you to fight. Not only did it almost pull you in, but it did pull you in, and you held on to it.
Swam.
You righted your kayak, and you continued to fight it like this.
Fighting physics all the way.
Absolutely. That's the salmon story. I appreciate your honesty. I remember when I was on the docks in Saanich Inlet, the lies that were told.
Well,
the lies.
Tales.
You can't believe how many salmon we caught yesterday. There were so many. Our boat was sinking because of all the salmon we caught, right? And we caught them over there, and then meanwhile, they take their boat out this way, because obviously they're not going to tell you where they caught. Right. So anyway,
but let's move on. Share your salmon story. We really appreciate it, because there's some other things of salmon we want to talk about
today. So actually, Roy in Peeringham asked a question. Why is it that the government's taking so long to bring in a salmon secretariat? And I just want to respond to that, because on one hand, it feels like we proposed it a few weeks ago. And to be honest with you, Roy, we've met with the government on a number of occasions. We've met with a number of very high-level government officials to talk about this. I'm not going to suggest in any way, shape, or form that. Let's put it positively. I think that this is something that's going to take shape. It's going to happen. It's going to take some time. It's about reversing the direction of the previous government, which was clearly not on wild salmon. So I think, and we're going to talk about that in just a sec. So I just want to let you know that we have caught the government's attention. We've caught all aspects of the salmon industry's attention in what we've said. And so I thank you. I absolutely thank you for your question.
Well, speaking about catching attention, there's a big press event that happened
There was.
yesterday.
Yeah, so the BC, a bunch of chefs in downtown Vancouver, along with the David Suzuki Foundation, got together. I think Wild Salmon Found. Anyway, a bunch of chefs, high-end chefs, got together and said, "We don't use farmed salmon. We don't want to use farmed salmon. We think salmon farms should be removed from the open net ocean. Salmon farms should go on land." And this is the first very, very important industry, people who cook and serve salmon in high-end restaurants, saying we don't have anything to do with it. We would prefer for salmon farms to go on land. We, of course, sent out a press release saying that we agree with that. We also want to see salmon farms on land, out of the migration routes of salmon. In addition to that, one of the pieces, and we're going to talk about this piece next, is that First Nations have a very, very important role to play in this. And the 20-something fish farm tenures that are coming up in the Broughton Archipelago do not have the support of First Nations.
And I would also say that generally chefs aren't a very political group. You don't hear them protesting very much. So that they're getting in front, and this is a serious issue for them. And it highlights the seriousness of our sustainable fishery industry. And
it says, you know what it's going to take. It's actually, in order for the government to make these changes, they could make the changes if they wanted to. Clearly, they could make the changes. It's taking a much longer time than perhaps I think British Columbians thought, considering what was said in the last election by the current government. So what it's going to take is it's going to take us to continue to get together, work together, come together, share stories, to have all people from all walks of life sharing their stories, sharing how this impacts them, coming together, lobbying the government, applying pressure
on the
government. Write your MLA. Write me, and you can write me at adam.olsen.mla@ledge.bc.ca. And when you write us an email, let us know. Say hi to Ryan when you write us an email. He will filter it to us. We have one more thing, and then we've got to move on.
There's also a report that came out.
There is.
A big one that the government has been working on for the last 6 months.
MACFA, I think it's called. No, 18 months.
18 months.
The Ministry of Agriculture's Finfish Aquaculture report came out. It was a wide variety of people within the
a lot of different stakeholders contributed.
Stakeholders, that's right. Yeah. First Nations, fish farm and industry, the aquaculture industry, commercial fishery supporters, not supporters. Mm-hmm. It was a big group of people, and the report basically read like this: some of us think this, others of us think that. Every paragraph basically read that way. It was very much not full agreement on much in that report. Which this is a very divisive issue. Mm-hmm. Wild salmon, on the other hand, are not divisive. Everybody seems to support wild salmon. But finfish aquaculture, aka salmon farms, fish farms, Atlantic salmon fish farms. This report came out. Recommendation 2.1, I think, is the key recommendation in this. They didn't say get them all out, but what they said was any new tenures are going to require the support of First Nations. And of course, that's the problem that we're having right now, or that's the problem that the aquaculture industry has right now in the Broughton Archipelago. They do not have the support of the First Nations. The Numgeese have said no. They've said no for 30 years. Apparently, the aquaculture industry can't figure that out. They continue to, even in the face of the tenures that are coming up, they continue to put smolts in nets at the same time as these conversations are happening and tensions are rising in the Broughton Archipelago. And we want to say to the people who have brought this issue to the attention, thank you for the work that you're doing on that.
And on that note, I think I'm going to head out here, Adam, and you can introduce Kayla.
Excellent. You are watching the Public Circle Live. My name is Adam Olsen. I'm the MLA for Saanich North and the Islands. We're just doing a shift change here. Welcome, Kayla Phillips.
Hi, everybody.
How you doing, Kayla Phillips?
I'm pretty great.
Where are you from?
I'm from Coquitlam, and I realize I do have a salmon story.
Okay, tell us. Excellent. We're going to keep this on track here.
Okay.
What's your salmon story?
So I grew up around Scott Creek.
Okay.
That's the name of the middle school that I went to in Coquitlam. Mm-hmm. And every year, my dad would take me down to Scott Creek, and we would look and see if they were coming in. And I don't know how he knew so much about salmon, but every season that they were supposed to be coming in, he would go and take me and check if they were there. In the second grade, we had a fish tank with salmon that we watched grow up. So it's a really big part of life in the Tri-Cities, actually, and I think that that needs to be recognized as well.
My son said to me, I told this story earlier when we were in a meeting, so this is the second time Kayla's heard this story, but I was talking on the phone about salmon farming and fish farms, and he said to me, he was listening, kind of eavesdropping on my conversation. I hung up. I was quite frustrated after, and he's like, Dad, are they talking about growing fish in pens? And I said, yes. And he goes, why doesn't somebody tell them that they should be growing them in estuaries? And I said, that's exactly the point, Silas. And it's the story of kids. If you're a British Columbia kid, that's your story, because he's watched them grow up in tanks as well, and then he goes and releases them. So how is it that you come to be working with the BC Green Party Caucus?
All right, so anyone who's graduated from a BC institution in the last 2 years, regardless of your degree, is eligible to apply for the BC Legislative Internship Program.
Right.
Of course, this appeals to us political nerds, us people who have done political science degrees, history degrees, sociology, that sort of thing. So that typically is who's involved in it. Go through an application process, and a year ago, I actually found out I was going to be doing this starting in January. Mm-hmm. So me and 12 other interns are spread over the different caucuses. We start with a month in a ministry. I was lucky enough to do mental health and addictions, and then I am one of two of the first ever Green Caucus interns. So
That's
here
right.
I am.
This is the first time that the Greens have ever had official party status, but as well the first time that the Greens have ever been part of the intern program. What do you think? What do you see so far working with us crazy people, us crazy Greens?
I see all the things that the public never gets to see. I get to see that you three are some of the most hilarious people I've ever worked with. You take your job so ridiculously seriously, but it's still somehow the most fun work environment that I've ever seen. So it's this like really interesting balance that you just don't expect, because you think it's like serious business all the time, and it totally is, but it's also just like an amazing environment.
We try to keep it light, sometimes maybe a little too light, although it's a serious business that we're in. I mean, this is the livelihood of the people of British Columbia. Like it's serious business, but if you can't stay light, it can get pretty heavy, right? And that that makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. So you were in Andrew Weaver's constituency office.
I was there last week, and then the week before that I was in Saanich North's office. So I've done the whole run now. So
we won't tell them, but this is definitely your favorite constituency office, right?
Oh, wow. I don't know.
We won't tell them, though.
Yeah.
I doubt they're watching. No, so the differences between us, I mean, there's a huge amount of love between Andrew, Sonia, and I. We get along so well, but we're different people. There's differences in our constituency offices, differences in approach. I think people often get the impression that you become part of a party, you become just this all of the same. What are some of the interesting differences that you see in them? No, just put her on the spot.
I think that your office is somewhere in the middle. Sonia's is very based in very specific issues in that region.
Right.
Andrew's are more general to things that happen in the province, because he's the party leader. He seems to get a lot of emails just about everything. And then your office is more of a combination of both of those things.
Keep emailing Andrew.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Also, yeah, it really just depends on the styles. Like, some people like to wait for some people to come to them, and that works because then it's like whoever has issues. Some others like to get out there and kind of create that dialogue before it happens. So
yeah, I mean, there's no handbook here. You get elected. We just had Aldous on before. We get elected, and it was like, what do you want to do? And that literally, there's not like, this is what you do to be an MLA, or this is what you do to move things along. You have to figure it out, and it is about personality. We've all got different personalities, although I think that the three of us are very complementary. So Anything else you want to? We gotta. It's almost time to jump off here. I see there has been a couple of questions that I'd like to get to, but is there anything that you would like to leave the massive viewing public that we have here on episode 8 of the Public Circle Live?
I would say that even if you didn't vote Green, your interests are 100% being represented by these 3 members. So you're in good hands. That
was totally unsolicited, folks. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the ability to, like, we've spent some time yesterday on Salt Spring Island, and Alex and I spent some time on Salt Spring. I appreciate the opportunity to get feedback from people that are outside. You know, you get into these political bubbles, and there's a lot of people that are saying it's a good job, or there's people saying you're not doing a good job. But then you can actually sit in a car and have a conversation about what do you think, and you get this honest feedback from someone who's you've just met and they're coming in. So I appreciate the opportunity to work with you, and thank you for humoring us here on the Public Circle Live, going live with us on Facebook. What do we have? So there was a couple of questions about the decision making around fish farming. Look, in the last election, the government MLAs, the government cabinet ministers, the current government's cabinet ministers said that they were going to get rid of fish farms. So the MACFA report was commissioned by the previous government. It slowed the process down. They didn't want to call it this, but they put a moratorium on approving new tenures. Look, there's been a lot said about the government and the current government's approach to fish farms. They were going to get them. They promised to get them out of the Broughton Archipelago. They promised to get them out of the migratory fish routes for migratory sockeye and the Fraser fishery. They promised to implement the Cohen report. So all of those things, I don't know that this report has any more weight to it than stuff that they've already promised to do. Let's just say we need to continue to let them know what we feel, the government know what we feel about fish farms. I invite you to continue to share that with me, and you can email it at adam.olsen.mla@ledge.bc.ca. You can go to my website, adamolsen.ca, and you can share your fish story and share what you feel on it. So has this been the biggest story in Saanich North and the Islands? Maybe not. It's certainly becoming a very, very big story in British Columbia. I can tell you, as we get closer to the summer and the Fraser River sockeye are coming back, Saanich North and the Islands becomes the hub for all 5 Pacific salmon species in the Salish Sea. That's one amazing thing about this riding, is that it is the home of so many salmon in the summer as they get ready to go up the Fraser River. What has been the biggest story in BC politics this week from your perspective? You can post it in the comments below. You can leave me a question. I can get to them later. It's time to wrap up this week's episode. So we'll do that now. But please leave a comment, leave a question, tag somebody, hit that like button a few more times. Maybe show us some love if you really enjoyed this episode. If you didn't, there's some buttons that you can press as well. Pop over to my YouTube channel. The link will be in the description below. Subscribe to that. I put all of the work that I do in the legislature, all the video work that I do up, and we'll go back into the legislature after a 3-week spring break on Monday, so you can start to see more questions in question period, more statements, more comments from myself and my 2 colleagues, Andrew Weaver and Sonia Firstno. That will be on my website at adamolsen.ca. Again, you can get a hold of us at adam.olsen.mla@ledge.bc.ca. You can visit our office, number 215 at 2506 Beacon Avenue. It's in the landmark building, the foot of Beacon Avenue in beautiful Sidney by the Sea. We're open 10 till 4 Monday to Friday. You can give us a call, 250-655-5600. This is your office. Please come visit us. And if you have any questions or comments or you feedback or you have some ideas, come on in and share them with us. Any one of the ways that you can. This show, the Public Circle Live, happens every Friday at 4:30. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Kayla, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aldous, who's right over there, for joining us. It's been a blast hanging out with you today, And so until next week, hi Agua. And now I turned it off. This is the awkward part for people that are watching live. Have a good day, everybody.